This is Football at 4.
I'm happy to be around a group of guys like this, a talented roster such as this one. It's going to be fun, man. I don't think anybody's ready for what's about to happen. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be entertaining. It should have already been that way for you guys when you look at the defense, but I know what I bring. I know the juice that I'm going to bring and the energy.
That's Haason Reddick when he met the media talking about the Jets defense. He says, I don't think anyone's ready for what's about to happen. Geoff Mosher is here, Football at 4. It is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms, and search their YouTube channel, search Inside the Birds. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, Geoff Mosher, we asked the question when they made the trade. He said, people aren't aware about what's about to happen. I guess we want to look back at this deal. And in our minds, do you look at the Eagles' defense as a better overall defense right now than the defense that left last year? You got Vic Fangio. You have added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Devin White. Essentially, you've lost Fletcher Cox and Haason Reddick. So I think people look at Vic Fangio, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a linebacker, and say, okay, this defense should be better. But are they really?
Probably overall marginally, if at all, Mike. I mean, obviously at safety, way better. CJ Gardner-Johnson, just by being there, upgrades their secondary, upgrades their safety group by a lot because there just wasn't a whole lot of young, dynamic talent at that position. Kevin Byard, who was brought in, was just a player who I still think can play, but had to be in 2 and then 3 different defenses, and he's just not the player that he used to be. And CJ Gardner-Johnson, from what we saw, is still a very a dangerous player when he's healthy. But, Mike, he's very – I mean, what did he play, 3 games last year, and he played half a season for the Eagles. So if you're talking about the bigger picture, you have to throw that into it. Will he stay healthy enough to actually make that impact in the secondary that he made for half a year for the Eagles 2 years ago? But yeah, in the front 7, you don't have Reddick. You have Bryce Huff. So Reddick is so far a superior player. It doesn't mean Bryce Huff can't get to that level, but at linebacker, now people say, hey, look, Devin White may not be great, but he's an upgrade over fill in the blank. And I guess in this case it would be Zach Cunningham. Well, Zach Cunningham played pretty decently for an Eagles linebacker last year. And the one thing about Zach is he may not be the athlete that Devin White is, but he knows where to be. He's a smart player. He's always been a great tackler. You can't say that about Devin White. So I'm of the philosophy that even if you were comparing him to Shaq Leonard, right? Yeah, okay, he's better than Shaq Leonard, Devin White is, but bad linebacker plays bad linebacker play. And if he doesn't play well, it's not going to matter if
let me interject with the question for you, Moshe. Would you rather TJ Edwards or Devin White? I mean, TJ Edwards didn't get drafted because he didn't measure well. He didn't run well. So he's nowhere near the athlete. But I think everybody listening should say, I would take TJ Edwards.
In a heartbeat, clearly. In fact, there are some Bears people who will tell you that they felt TJ Edwards was their best linebacker last year, and that includes the more athletic Tremaine Edmonds, who's not a bad player. It's not like he was Terrell Edmonds and just came there and didn't have a good year. He had a fine year. It's just that TJ Edwards had a really good – TJ Edwards is that guy who just does everything right.
Geoff Mosher, yeah, I mean – because you're taking a look at, listening to Reddick, and obviously, on the surface, how do you think Howie Roseman viewed this trade? Is this a trade that he was forced into, that he was excited about making, or was it like, this is all I can get, and I don't want to rock the boat? Did Vic Fangio get involved in this and say, listen, I don't know that he fits what I want to do? How do you think this trade kind of materializes? Here we are a couple days later, and you're like, man, they made this trade, and the pick that they're getting is not for potentially 2 seasons. Well, not potentially. It's not for 2 seasons. It's potentially whether it's a second or a third. And we know how he likes to get number 2, to get seconds. But do you think that he was excited about making this deal?
This is Howie Roseman made this deal. I mean, this is his call. I know there's stuff out there about Vic Fangio and conversations. I don't know anything like that. It's not like they went and signed a player to replace him who's gifted at dropping into coverage as well. They signed Bryce Huff to go rush the quarterback because those were his best metrics last year, was rushing the quarterback. So that was a Howie Roseman decision. I don't think that he didn't want to do it or got forced into it. I think that he just knew that he was going to remake this defense differently, and he knew that the situation facing Reddick last year was going to be complex for him. And as I keep telling people, whether it's on our Inside the Birds platform or your listeners, Howie's got, in my mind, a plan, and the plan's not done yet. And we'll judge that plan, going into the season on whether or not he fixed the defense enough. I mean, you look at it right now, doesn't look good, Mike. I mean, you still have James Bradbury as a starter at one corner. I mean, you're still not sure if Nakobe Dean can stay healthy at linebacker. The draft hasn't happened yet, right? You got a lot of young players who are now going to be asked to play prominent roles, and that presents an issue if they're not ready for it, like we've seen with Jordan Davis for the first 2 years. But I don't think the plan has been fully executed yet.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The plan not fully executed yet. Possibly, do they want to continue to look for free agent talent, more veteran talent, or do you think draft night is, hey, we're going to get an influx of younger players, and that's where we add the remaining pieces here?
I think any kind of move that's going to be really profound and significant at this point is going to come either from the trade market or the draft market. I think if it's from the free agent market, it's probably a one-year deal. That's where we're at right now in free agency for most NFL teams. You saw Julian Blackmon just re-signed with the Colts yesterday on a one-year deal, and that's what's left in free agency, a bunch of guys at positions where it's a buyer's market, safety, linebacker, things like that, nickel corner, where guys are just going to be signing one-year deals. So that's not going to excite a whole lot of people. It doesn't mean you can't strike it rich on one like a Patrick Robinson or a Chris Long or something. It's just, the needle moving moves are the ones that are going to be in the draft or the trade market.
All right, as Justin Simmons, a guy like him, big name, can still, obviously played in Vic Fangio's defense. As the days go on, is that someone that you were like, you know what, how he keeps his eye on something like that, I wouldn't be surprised. They did bring Blankenship back, and I think most people view him as a number 3 safety, but maybe the Eagles are saying, no, we like him as a starter, or would you be surprised, or would you not be surprised if they said, hey, is a veteran player of that level still sitting out there after the draft? That's when we'll make the move.
Yeah, and usually the case with that, Mike, is, veterans can sometimes, and hey, listen, I'm for anybody who wants their dollar figure, right? They know what their value is, or at least they're strong and convicted into it, and they're not just going to sign on a one-year deal, go the Nick Morrow route, say no guaranteed money. Veterans are going to wait, especially ones who have good credentials like Justin Simmons, and I know that the prevailing thought is, well, the longer you wait, the more the money goes down. Well, not always. Sometimes you'll see a team get injured, right? You'll see guys wait until the last minute, then somebody suffers an injury, or two teams have an injury at that position, in OTAs or camp, and then all of a sudden you got a little bit of a bidding war going on because you're the best available veteran and the team gets desperate. So you'll see some veterans wait it out instead of settling for bottom dollar. But even with that, the bottom line is, like you saw with Shaq Leonard in the middle of the year last year, even though he had a couple teams pursuing him, you're really talking about a one-year deal. And at this point, what they look for is, can it be incentivized? Can it be up to a certain amount of money if I reach those incentives?
Yeah, well, and you mentioned Zach Cunningham. Is he a guy that still should be on the radar?
At this point, yes. I mean, just in case. But you look at the Eagles' pecking order here. They've bolstered the position. They have Nakobe Dean coming back. That's 1. They've got Devin White as 2. They've got Oren Burks as a 3. They signed Zach Baun, who they see as a player who can be a stack linebacker or a Sam on-the-ball linebacker. So you can count him as 4, unless that they see him more as an edge guy. We'll have to see what they say and what they do in OTAs. But also Ben Van Sumeren is a kid who flashed as a rookie free agent in the Giants game. So that's 5. I think if they're going to bring back Cunningham, might be, sign him, bring him to camp, see what he's got, see what the other guys are. But they can kind of also afford to not sign him. I don't think that they feel he's a guy that they have to have at this minute.
Yeah, and I only asked that because you mentioned the White thing, where he's an athlete and he's a guy that has been criticized for being, kind of out of place a lot and a guy who's got a lot of athletic traits, but he ended up getting benched this year. You don't really have a guy that you can bench him for currently on this team, it feels like, though.
Not necessarily. I think the thing that intrigues me about Oren Burks, though, Mike, is that, first guy in for Dre Greenlaw, or if there was a linebacker injury for the 49ers. I mean, he is a depth piece. You don't want him starting, but he's 6'3". And that's sort of a deviation from where the Eagles have always been traditionally with their stack off-ball linebackers. They're usually in that 5'11", 6'6'1" range. But last year when they signed Zach Cunningham, that was the first time they really brought in a guy at that position who had height and length, and now they're doing it again with Oren Burks. So does it make you wonder if they feel like Oren could be a Cunningham-like player with those dimensions, and if you just gave him more time, could he play well? But I think there's a delineation here where Oren has been a backup and he's good depth. Zach Cunningham has been a starter for most of his career. I don't know where they see him right now. But again, he's there if you need him.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on a Wednesday. It's rainy out. It's nasty out. We're still thinking about the football. I want to ask you, they got Saquon Barkley, which was the big offensive move here. Is there something obvious on the offensive side that still needs to kind of be taken, that they need to take a look at? Or is the offense draft day?
Yeah, I would keep my eye, Mike, on the guard market. This is what we're talking about, the free agent one-year deal veteran who's still out there. I don't have a name specifically for you. I've just heard it's an area that they're still looking at. If you think about it, Tyler Steen, he shouldn't be handed the right guard position. He's got to compete for it. They did sign Matt Hennessy, who can play center and guard, but, one-year deal, depth piece. They may draft a guy, but you want a guy who can play guard, like Steph Wisniewski did, step in there and be able to play a season for you and not just, make you lose hope if a guy has to play that long. I don't know that Matt Hennessy is that guy that you really want starting double-digit games if need be. And, Tyler Steen has to prove that he's ready, and the coaches have also talked about him being a guard/tackle type player. So I would, if there's an opportunity for them to bring in a guy who started a lot of games and can play that position and hold it down and at least compete, and if not, give you depth, I would see the Eagles making a move there.
Yesterday with Adam, we talked about the betting odds in the NFC East. We both thought it was kind of interesting. No team has won back-to-back since 2004. Dallas won last year. Philadelphia plus 150, Dallas plus 150. Commanders and Giants are both plus 900. We both found those odds to be pretty interesting. It almost says Philadelphia is the favorite if you go into the whole, hey, no one wins back-to-back, and they have the same odds. I think the Commanders at plus 900 and the Giants, I was surprised they're on the same plane. I think Washington could be kind of the interesting dark horse this year.
Totally agree with you. But then again, I've thought Washington would be the interesting dark horse for the last 3 or 4 years, and they just never have been.
Fair.
But yeah, I wouldn't put them in the same boat with the Giants. But then again, Daniel Jones comes back, and I can see why Vegas would put them both in the same boat, really. And that boat would be way, way behind the Cowboys and the Eagles. And you're right. With all being equal there, with both of them having the same odds, you would go with the historical precedent and say, well, Dallas has to repeat, and nobody's done it in over 20 years. So that gives the Eagles a little bit of a leg up. But I always say this too, Mike. Eventually, the law of averages, which I know is not a real thing, it's going to catch up, and eventually somebody's going to win this division 2 years in a row.
Speaking of odds, there was a trade today, a major trade in the NFL. Stefon Diggs goes from Buffalo to Houston. Now Houston's odds have gone from plus 135 to win the AFC South to plus 115, and their Super Bowl odds from plus 2,500 to plus 1,700. It looks like those two teams have just essentially swapped. Buffalo now is maybe like a wild card, fringe playoff team, and Houston, where Buffalo was, a Super Bowl contender. Huge trade that goes down on a random Wednesday in the middle of the offseason.
Yeah, leave it to the NFL. Random Wednesday, middle of offseason to make huge news. And look, the Texans are for real. They're legit. We all know C.J. Stroud had an unbelievable rookie year, maybe one of the best years ever, if not the best year ever for a rookie quarterback. Went 2 rounds deep in the playoffs, added Joe Mixon, added Danielle Hunter, right? And now they trade for Stefon Diggs to pair with Nico Collins, and Tank Dell will come back from the injury. I think it makes that team really formidable, Mike. And, the Texans are doing the smart thing. The Eagles did it too. In year 2 of Carson Wentz, when they went and got Torrey Smith and they went and got Alshon Jeffrey. When you have a talented quarterback on a rookie deal and you got that money to spend, go spend that money on weapons, man, and build yourself up, because you can do some great things in years 2, 3, and 4 of a quarterback's deal. Look what the Seahawks did with Russell Wilson. Same thing, right? A lot of examples of it where you get a young quarterback. The Chiefs did it with Mahomes, where you get a young quarterback on a rookie deal and you have an opportunity to really pad your team. And before you have to give the guy the extension and the big money, you got a great opportunity to do some great things.
All right, let's play real quick. The ESPN bet had its season over-under win totals come out today. Don't know if you saw any of these, but Dallas and Philadelphia, both over-under 10.5.
Wow. Okay. Oh, you want me to give you the over or the under?
Are you surprised by either?
No. I mean, how can I be? They both have won double-digit games for each of the last 2 years, right? I think the Eagles have 25 wins over the last 2.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. But Dallas hasn't made a move. So is that a team that is going to ascend, or are they going to stay the same? And I know they won more than 10 games last year. So even if they stay the same, and Philadelphia obviously at the end of the season that they had, a lot of people think that, we're talking about the defense. Where are they? Are they taking a step back? 10.5 is a pretty big number.
It is. Dallas has lost some guys. Obviously, they lost Tyron Smith. Obviously, they lost Tony Pollard. They lost Dorrance Armstrong. We'll see what happens with Stephon Gilmore. But remember, they won all those games. They bring back Trayvon Diggs, who will come back from the ACL. They still have Dak there. They got the kid that they drafted 2 years ago, Tyler Smith, who played really well left guard. He'll probably move to left tackle. Oh, they lost their center, Travis Frederick, too. But I just still think they're a nucleus, their core. When you have Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Trayvon Diggs, and Micah Parsons, right, and Zach Martin still there, that's pretty good. That's a good nucleus for them to have. And, even if they don't make a significant amount of moves here, they'll have the draft. I still think they're a pretty darn good team.
By the way, both the Giants and Washington, 6.5 over-under. A little surprised that they're the same.
I think you can make a decent argument to take the over on both of those.
More so Washington. I just think the Giants, they have no weapons. You lost Saquon, who's been your offense for 2 years. Your receiving core is thin.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that, but you're right about the receiving core. Now, if they get their hands on Marvin Harrison Jr. or Rome Odunze, right? Now, Darren Waller, if he comes back, I know there's some reports of retirement, but I'm less concerned for them about the running back and more about the offensive line. And if they do get so I know they signed a guy, and maybe they'll draft a guy. Their defense, they've got some players on D. Even losing McKinney.
Their defense is solid.
But I would agree with you. Washington would be the one I would probably more bet on to win over 6.5 than New York.
All right. Geoff Mosher, of course, the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. But I'm sad to say Google Podcast is now dead. Actually, today. I don't know. They told me after April 2nd, but I was using it earlier this morning. So I don't know. But you can get Inside the Birds podcast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, and download the app there. And, of course, the YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds, and you can listen to Football at 4 on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.